Great learners, how do you compute square root of a number? How do you compute square root of a number? For more on this, join me, Teacher Jonathan, at Easy Elimu Learning Simplified, as we work out square root of all numbers. And this time, when we are working out square root of all numbers, we'll look at the perfect squares up to 500. Perfect squares. What do I mean by saying perfect squares? It is a perfect square that you will use whole number and a whole number that will give you a perfect square without a remainder. There's nothing remaining. It is a perfect square. And for more on this, learners, I would like us to engage in an activity as you join in your groups. And when you go to your groups, using the blocks that we had used in an earlier lessons, I would like us now, we use the first example, that is just have a square. We will base our answer from a square. We'll base our answer from a square. So that is a square that we have formed. That is a square that we have formed. And the square that we have formed, it has two rows and two columns. So what do we get here? We get 4 cubes, or 4 cubes, and our answer becomes 4. So we say, we learned here, we have these ones and these going up. So these ones are how many? 1, 2. Going up, we have this and this. So it is 2 multiplied by 2 to get 4. So for us to get the square of 2 is equals to 4. And we said a square number is a product of a number when it has been multiplied by itself. Now, what did we do to get 4? So I can reverse this one. 2 multiplied by 2 is equals to 4. So this is equal to mean 4. For me to get 4, I used 2 multiplied by 2. For me to get 4, I took 2 multiplied by 2. Therefore, I will use this one to say square root of 4 is equals to 2. Square root of 4. I know at this point we are a bit confused, but what is the square root? What is a square root? And a square root is a number that is multiplied by itself. A number that is multiplied by itself to get a square number. And a number that is multiplied by itself, square root is a number that is multiplied by itself to get a square number. To get a square number. For me to get a square number, and in our case here, the square number was square number 4. The number that I used to get square number is what I call the square root. The number that I used to get square number, the number itself was 2. When I multiplied by itself, I got my square number 4. So that number that I used to get the square number is what I call square root. And when we are working out the square root, we use this sign. For you to get the square root sign is this one. Whenever you see this sign, it means you are looking for square. This is a square root sign. Whenever you use this sign, you are calculating the square root. Whenever you get this sign, you are working out for the square root. Now, what is a perfect square? A perfect square is a square number whose square is a whole number. A perfect square is a square whose number is a square whose number whose square, sorry, it is a number, is a square number, as a perfect square is a square number. It's a square number whose perfect square is a square number whose square is a whole number. I will explain this. I'm saying a perfect square is a square number. A square number, for example, number 4 is a square number. Whose square, the square was 2, is a whole number. 2 is a whole number. But if I use 1.5, this is not a whole number. When I use 4.5, this is not a whole number. But whole numbers are 4, that is a whole number. We also used 9 is a whole number. So a number which multiplied by itself gives you 10, gives you 20. When I multiply myself, for example, 10 times 10, we got 100. So 10 is a perfect square. 10 is a perfect square. 5 multiplied by 5 is 25. So 5 is a perfect square. Now, using that concept now in our groups, now, using the same concept, now I would like us now we arrange 16 blocks. Let us now look at the 16 blocks. Let us arrange them to form a square unit. We are arranging the 16 blocks to form a square unit. 16 blocks to form a square unit. Make sure your unit is square. That means 4 rows, or the number of rows and the number of columns are equal. That is a square unit. So we have something of this. Let us count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yes. And this has given us something of this. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the number of rows, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Columns, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4 multiplied by 4 is equals to 16. Let us count all our 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So if I have 16, 4 square is equals to 16. So in other words, for me to get 16, I used 4. So I will say square root of 16. The number that I used to get this 16 is 4. In other words, squares and square root are related. For me to get square root, I use the square. 4 times 4 is 16. So 16, square root of 16 is 4. Which number did I use multiplied by itself to get 16? Which is 4. That is how we get the square root. Now, let us look at the square root of the following number as in our example. What is the square root of 144? What is the square root of 144? Now, how do we calculate the square root of 144? Learners, this is what we will use. Now, we will use the factor tree. The factor tree. And the factor tree, I use the factors which are meant to get 144. So I'll have 144. For me to get 144, I used 2. And which other number? 72. For me to get 72, I used 2 and another number, which was 36. For me to get 36, I used 2 and another number, 18. For me to get 18, I used 2 and another number, 9. For me to get 9, I used 3 and 3. And for me to get 3, I used 3 and 1. That is the factor tree. Now, I'm looking for the square root of 144. And how am I looking for it? I'm using the factor tree. It is called the factor tree. Now, for me to get now the formula, this was step 1. Step 1, look for the factors. Factors, we have gotten them. So the factors are, let me rub this side. The factors that I'm using are as follows. The factors that I'm using, let me transfer them. It was 2 multiplied by 2. The other one is 2. We have a multiplication sign in between. Multiplied by 2, multiplied by 2, multiplied by 3, multiplied by 3. Let us see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, this one now has given us, these are the factors of 144. Now, next step is to pair the factors. So I pair them. And in each pair, I pick only one. So I'll pick 2 here, sign stays, I pick another 2 here, sign stays, I pick 1, 3. Now, 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 3. Let us multiply. 2 multiplied by 2 is 4. 4 multiplied by 2 is equals to 12. Therefore, square root of 144 is equals to 12. In other words, 12 multiplied by 12, I'll get 144. That is how we use the factor method to get the square root. First, you identify the factors of that number so that you can have the square root. With these learners, can we try the following task? And how will you try them? Use the factor tree to work out the square root of the following numbers. Work out the square root. And the square root you are working out is for the following numbers. We have 196, the square root of 196. Number 2, we have a square root of 400. Number 3, we have another square root of the square root of 256. Work out the square root of those numbers. Learners, remember to do more practice on square root of perfect squares up to 500. See you in the next lesson. Bye-bye.